You're listening to Boobies and Newbies, brought to you by the Frolic Podcast Network. Welcome to Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today marks our first release for the month of November. Now, you might have noticed that we have a few less scheduled releases this month, and that is all because winter is coming. That's right, I'm talking about our annual holiday special, the 12 Days of Boobsmas, which kicks off December 1st. So get ready for 12 holiday romances, 12 episodes, and 12 giveaways, all in the month of December. Prepare yourselves for the merriment now. Plus, there's never been a better time to support the podcast on Patreon. We've got holiday cards, we've got custom socks and magnets, and so many more exclusive goodies, all for our November and December patrons. So please consider joining us on Patreon this holiday season. You won't regret it. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming the hilariously talented Rex Barraza.
Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Rex. We talked about it a little bit before we started recording, but it has been a bit since we've actually, one, seen each other, and two, spoken. And the reason I separate those two occasions is because Rex and I met during a sketch writing class in Hollywood, back when I was still living in Los Angeles. And the reason we've spoken more often rather than seen each other is because we had exactly one meeting in person before COVID struck, and we turned to online classes from there on out.
Yeah, so I saw your face on a screen for much longer than I did in person. It was
Yes.
It was weird.
You're very familiar with Zoom me, not in-person me.
Yes. But you know what? I mean, I've known you for 8 months, and I feel like our relationship is mostly online, but not just online, you know?
Yeah, that's good. It definitely, these last, God, isn't that insane? 8 months. These last 8 months have really made you realize, like, the people you want to keep in touch with, or what makes you happy and what do you appreciate. I have, for one, really enjoyed the time that we spent in class together. And then two, I love watching you perform online because I know that you've done some more improv classes since then.
Zoom performances are very different than live performances, but I feel like it's great. Thank you for watching us.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think, as much as this pandemic has just been like a nightmare and a migraine all in one, it's also, I feel like, created a lot of opportunities that we didn't necessarily, like, we could have had before, but, like, why have a Zoom performance if you can have an in-person performance? Yeah. And now, though, because we are at home, I really do love, like, the innovation and ideas that are coming out of people and what they are creating during a time where we're stuck at home. So I am here for it. I am here to support it. And I will always be happy to watch a Zoom performance of yours.
Thanks. Yeah. No, I'm all about it. I do think that we're all trying to, make with do, and we're all having new experiences, and some of them are great and some of them maybe won't stand the test of time when things get back to some sort of normalcy. But
sure,
trying to connect any way we can. I'm all about it too.
Yeah. So tell me what has been going on with you, because you kind of hinted that you had some exciting ventures in the works.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm currently sitting in a sound booth that I created in one of my closets in my house. So that's super fun. This is the first time I've actually used this specific space. So I'm excited to hear that my work, to hear the fruition of my work, I guess, the labor of my love. But I've just been sort of auditioning for voice acting gigs. And
yes,
one thing that I did, quote unquote, book was an erotic short story. So,
oh my gosh,
I feel like it's totally fitting for, your podcast.
That is fantastic. I'm curious, I'm familiar with like Dipsea and ACX. Ooh. Was it with one of those?
It was ACX. So I finished recording it in September. I don't think that it's completely produced yet. Like, I'm new to the site, so we'll see when it goes up. I'll definitely have to tell you when it is, because that was it was a riot to record late at night. Some things I've personally experienced but never had to narrate. So yeah.
That it is funny when you think about that, of sort of just like, well, yeah, I've done this. I can talk about this. It's like, well, I have done this, but I've never actually said these words aloud.
Yes, and I just tend to like giggle when I'm there's just some really, if you listen to it, you will get a kick out of some of the stuff that the writer wrote. It's delicious, but delivery is a different story.
I will so listen to it. Yes, please, when you get a finished copy and you know that it's done, please let me know. Because people who listen to the podcast know I am not an audiobook listener. Like, I wish I was. And I feel like maybe I just haven't found the right excuse to do it. Like, yeah, and maybe the book itself too, but I find that to like listen to an audiobook, I have to be really engaged with whoever the speaker is, just because otherwise my thought is that I can generally read a book quicker than I can listen to it. And I like to just plow through books. I don't like to make them last 17 hours. And so I also get the appeal of the opposite side, the opposite point of view of like, take it on a walk or in a car ride or, at the office. So I do get both sides of it, but I do want to become a better audiobook listener. It's maybe it's a goal I'll set for 2021.
Yeah, but I think you as like a podcast creator, I love listening to podcasts. So
Me too.
And I'm like, I'm okay. I've hit my max for podcasts. I'm going to throw on a book. It's sort of like an alternative to one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, and still something that you can listen to. I thought it was really interesting. I actually, a little preview for the 12 Days of Boobsmas, I recorded with another romance podcast for one of the episodes, and it's a dual hosted podcast. There's two hosts, and I recorded with one of the hosts. And when I asked why the second one wasn't joining us, she said, well, because she only listens to audiobooks. She will not read a book. She only listens to them. And I said, oh my gosh, I know people who prefer audiobooks, but I don't know if I've ever actually met someone who will only listen. Yeah, exclusively. And so I found it so fascinating. So I'm just going to have to pick her brain for maybe like her favorite audiobooks to get me into them.
Okay, so confession time. I'm an Audible book consumer. So I did.
Okay.
I read or I listened to this book because I'm a 5-year-old and I like to be story told. But I guess we can get into that later. Like listening to it.
Yes.
Adds another dimension. The voice.
Oh, good.
Adds another layer to the book. So that was fun.
And you know what? When we do get to talking about the book, I do want to ask you about that because this book features an accent. So I think that's important because that could like make or break the story for sure, or just the listening experience.
Yes.
Oh gosh. Well, before we get to that, let me tell everybody about the book that we are going to be discussing today, and that is Simmer Down by Sarah Smith. First of all, love the title. I think it's also very appropriate for the month of November, considering it focuses on rival food truck owners, and this is a month for eating. I mean, let's be honest, between October and January, that's the month for eating.
I mean, I have totally been consuming everything under the sun the last 8 months, but I'm all about it for the next 3.
Oh, God, fine by me. Fine. And you know what? It's not going to stop there. I mean, I know we say that like, oh, holiday weight. No, I eat my holiday weight all year long. So whatever you're doing, whether you're, stocking up on the Thanksgiving foods at this point or already diving into like Christmas baking or still binging Halloween candy that went on sale. No judgment here.
None.
So this contemporary interracial romance was published just last month, October 2020. It's available on Amazon for $9.99 Kindle edition, but Rex and I were lucky enough to receive an advanced copy courtesy of NetGalley, Berkeley Publishing, and our fabulous author, Sarah Smith. And this is the exact sweet treat that I needed during this past month of political madness. But things are looking up, Rex.
Yes. I'm so excited. What a win.
Oh, it was the win, wasn't it? And I mean, I'm not here to talk about politics, but like it's impossible to do anything these days without having these conversations because they need to be said. And I am so thankful that we have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris come into the White House and bringing dogs. I'm so thankful for the dogs.
Rescue dogs, yeah.
Yeah, so I am here for it. If you did not vote for them, you're probably not going to like this podcast. Just a heads up in general. But if you're just as excited as Rex and I are, I'm so thankful. I'm so happy that you're happy. And oh God, I feel like I'm going to tear up just thinking about it. So let's move on to talk about other happy things. And I usually don't equate politics as being happy, but they were this past week. So other happy things though, let's talk about romance because you've mentioned that you are an Audible listener. And so I'm curious, before reading or listening to Simmer Down, had you ever read or listened to a romance before?
I mean, explicitly romance novels, I don't know. I don't know what the fine line is. When I was in college, I had an ex-boyfriend who was like, you don't know how to show affection. So then I read a bunch of Nicholas Sparks books.
Oh my God, did you dump his ass?
It didn't end up working out. And all those people in those books are like miserable. So I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay in the love department, or at least I was back then.
Yeah, I think you won. I think you won when it comes to that relationship. I think you won. What a shitty thing to like say to someone.
Yeah, that was laden with some complicated stuff, but I read a lot of romance, so that was fun.
Yeah, I will tell you, just so you know, for future reference, because Nicholas Sparks, Twilight, and 50 Shades of Grey come up often on this podcast as sort of the precursor for people's experience with romance.
Ooh, the gateway.
Yeah, the gateway drugs, right?
Gateway books.
And you know what? I'm fine with it. If those are the books that lead you to this much larger genre that's so much more diverse and so much more inclusive, as we see in this specific book we're going to talk about today, fine. But all you need to know, Rex, is that to qualify as a romance novel, the only rule that you need to follow is to have a happy ending.
Really?
That's it. Oh. That's all you need. That's all you can have 2 people falling in love. You can have 8 people all fucking each other around the clock. Doesn't matter. As long as you have a happily ever after or a happily for now, which is what we call sort of, the general happiness. They're together at the end, but maybe they're not engaged or married. That is all you need for a romance novel.
Okay, good. Good. I wasn't sure, but now I know. Thank you.
Yeah, so now you know Nicholas Sparks doesn't always pass the test there, does he?
Nope. Someone dies in every book.
It's a lot of cancer and like car crashes.
Yeah, unrequited love. It's very angsty. Maybe too much for me.
Very angsty. And you know what? I love a good angsty romance, but they better end up together. Otherwise, I'm going to be pissed.
Yes. I definitely need some closure for sure.
Well, besides that poor experience with a human that I'm so glad you are no longer together with, had you ever given much thought to reading romance before or had any preconceived notions about the genre in general?
Honestly, no. I mean, I didn't really think of it either way. I do read or listen to nonfiction, and
Mm.
mostly nonfiction, but the fiction stuff that I do take in is more like thrillers. But I wasn't opposed to it. I was really excited. I was like, you know what? I haven't given this genre any of my time, essentially. So I was up for the challenge.
Oh, good. Yeah. So it just wasn't really on your radar before.
Yeah, not typically. I'm kind of like a facts junkie or like a personal improvement junkie. So I don't think I can read a romance novel and improve my relationships. But maybe I should be reading the wrong things.
I think maybe that's why you guys broke up. It wasn't because of the relationship. It was because you chose Nicholas Sparks. No, that's not that's not true. I promise you that's not the case. Oh gosh, but I mean, let it be known that you've now narrated an erotic fiction book. You've read a romance novel, and I'm sure both of them are very different from not only each other, but from the Nicholas Sparks books that you've read. So it just goes to show there is quite the variety when it comes to romance.
Yes, I'm well versed. Well, actually, not well versed. I'm more versed than I was before.
I hope you keep narrating erotica.
Well, now I have the space. I have the safe space to do it.
Perfect. Yes, and that's what we all need. We need the safe space to read the romance and write the romance and narrate the romance.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, let me give everyone the brief-ish Amazon synopsis for the book that we're going to be talking about today. So here is Simmer Down by Sarah Smith. In this finger-licking good rom-com, 2 is the perfect number of cooks in the kitchen. Nikki DeMarco knew life wouldn't be all sunshine and coconuts when she quit her dream job to help her mom serve up mouth-watering Filipino dishes to hungry beachgoers. But she didn't expect the Maui food truck scene to be so eat or be eaten, or the competition to be so smoking hot. This is one of those synopses where if you were to take a shot every time a food reference or pun came into play, you would be schnockered by the time we get through just the synopsis. Okay, carrying on. But Tiva's Filipina Cucina has faced bigger road bumps than the arrival of Callum James. Sexy name. Nikki doesn't care how delectable the British food truck owner is. He rudely set up shop next to her coveted beach parking spot. He's stealing her customers and fanning the flames of a public feud that makes her see sparks. The solution? Let the upcoming Maui Food Festival decide their fate. Winner keeps the spot, loser pounds sand. Is that a saying?
I don't think so. Is that sexual? I don't know.
Loser pounds sand. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it's like loser hits the pavement, but with sand. But I've never heard pounding sand.
It's a Hawaiian saying.
It does sound dirty, though. Let's be honest. But the longer their rivalry simmers, the more Nikki starts to see a different side of Callum, a sweet, protective side. Is she brave enough to call a truce, or will trusting Callum with her heart mean jumping from the frying pan, shot, and into the fire? Another shot. Yeah, so, okay, I will mention, this just came to me now, that back when the pandemic had just started, Sarah Smith was actually a guest on a Instagram live spot that I did for the Frolic Podcast Network. That was it was very early on in either March or April, but Frolic, my podcast network, had asked me to do a Instagram live and just, sort of like invite whoever I wanted to come on. And Sarah had come on for 5 to 10 minute spot, and she actually shared a piece of her work in progress at the time, which was Simmer Down.
Oh, that's so fun. Was it set in stone? Did you reread what she had shared, or were there edits?
As I was reading the book, I kept thinking, I was like, okay, what part was it that she shared? I'm trying to remember. And there was, at one moment while reading, I do remember getting to a specific spot where I thought maybe this was it, because this does sound familiar. But I just remember when she first told me the concept before she shared a piece of it, she said it's about rival food truck owners. They live in Hawaii. The dude is British. The heroine is Filipina, and she makes, you know, Filipina food. And I was just like, oh my God, this is hitting all of my bells. Like, all of it. Like, first of all, British person, check. I will read any fucking thing featuring a British hero. Secondly, food, hello. Like, do you know who you're talking to? Of course I will read about food. And, you know, third, it's like an enemies to lovers story, which is my jam for sure. I love the, like, you know, I don't want to say hate up front, but, you know, the awkward, like, they're my enemy, or, you know, I have to get the promotion before he does, or in this case, who's going to win the coveted spot for food truck parking, which if you've ever watched the Great American Food Truck Race, you know that's a big deal.
I know that was a show, but I want to watch it now.
Oh, you totally should. Especially because, like, I know you love to, like, cook and bake and everything. Like, you will love it because they do all these challenges of, like, you have to, whoever makes the most money selling for the day, you know, wins a spot in the next week or whatever. But they'll give them specific challenges. Like, you have to make your version of tacos. You have to make whatever you want, but it has to have ube, you know, something like that. So yeah, I love a good food truck.
Me too. Or like those creative challenges. I mean, it's not the same thing, but like Project Runway, when they're like, here's a bunch of junk, make something from it. I'm all about the creativity.
That's the best. I love those shows. That's my favorite. Like, I do like reality television, but my favorite reality TV is like competition shows.
Totally.
Yeah.
You need to watch the next Great Potter. I know it sounds very boring, but it is fantastic. You learn so much about pottery.
Oh my, you know what? I haven't seen that. Is it British?
It is British, and it's on HBO Max or like Amazon Prime. It's not on the main streaming channels people think of, but it's worth a watch.
Okay, and you know what? I did just get HBO Max, so maybe it's that one. And if it's not, I do steal my parents' Amazon Prime, so we're good.
Password. We all got to do it. It's how we get by.
Yeah, I mean, I share my Hulu with them, and then we both steal my ex-roommate's Netflix, so it's only fair.
Do they know that?
Yeah. It's just an agreed upon exchange that nobody talks about. Oh gosh, I love that. Yeah, what do you are you a food truck consumer? Like, will you stop and buy from a food truck?
You know, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I've kind of only lived in Los Angeles County. I'm spoiled like that. So to me, I love street tacos from a truck. There's just something about them that just tastes delicious. But I'm not opposed to eating other kinds of food truck food.
Well, and we need to explain something, you know, having you grown up in Los Angeles County and me living there for about 5 years. Taco trucks in LA are very different from the typical food truck, because when I think of food trucks, a lot of them, they always have sort of like a fun theme to them, right? Like, I mean, in our book, we have a mother and daughter team who sell Filipino food. And then we have brothers who are British who do like fish and chips and like, you know, a take on British cuisine. Who knew there was such a thing as British cuisine? And, but
just a fish and chips.
Yeah, exactly. But like taco trucks, specifically in California and Los Angeles especially, those are the ones where you're not paying like $8 for a gourmet taco. You're paying like $1, maybe $1.50. And these are the legit corn tortillas. You know, no muss, no fuss. It is meat, maybe a little bit of salsa, you know, some cilantro. That's it. Hit it and quit it.
Oh, so good. And then if it's like $1.50 for a taco, that's like a grab. You know, you're taxing me for taco now. What happened?
I
Oh,
know, it's so crazy. And I think because, when you live in California, you don't think about that you have access to such incredible Mexican food like on every street corner. Like, and not even in all of California, but like I grew up in San Francisco area and that's also booming there.
hmm
Not so much, I'm sure, as Los Angeles and like San Diego are, but oh
hmm
my gosh. Let me tell you, after having moved to the Midwest,
Are there tacos there?
mm,
Not carne asada ones.
not like tacos in California, that's for sure.
Oh my! I
So,
visited a friend in New York who was like, "Oh, we're gonna go get some tacos," and me and my sister were with her. We went to this place, and there was ground beef in flour.
yep. Hmm.
And I was like, "This is Taco Bell food. This is Tex-Mex. It's not Mexican food truck food, you know?"
Yeah, that's definitely an option. I have a couple Mexican places near me that I like. However, they are not what you and I would think of when we think of like traditional Mexican food. Like they are much more the Chipotle of Mexican food. Like
Mhm.
what do you even call I call Chipotle like California fresh Mexican
Yeah,
food.
yeah, a beans and rice bowl. Like, I
Exactly.
when you want Chipotle, you want Chipotle. You don't want Mexican food, you know?
Yeah, and it really does sadden me though when you do meet people who like that is their concept of Mexican food is Chipotle or Taco Bell. So for all of you listening that are questioning all of your decisions for the
Come to LA.
last
You will-
yeah, it's definitely worth it. I will say I've had some really good Mexican food in Texas as well. Like I know there's like the Tex-Mex too, but I've had some of the best. Actually, you know what it was that I loved there was like a mashup of like barbecue and Mexican. So I think I had a chili relleno, but it also had like brisket in it, and that was
Ooh, some fusion.
incredible.
That sounds really good.
Yeah. And talk about fusion food, relating it back to the book, so we don't get hungry while we're talking. Um, I love that, in the end of this book, we do get this really odd fusion of Filipino and British cuisine.
Yep. Weird. Never. I mean, I guess I won't knock it till I try it. It just sounds.
Yeah, I don't really know what that entails, especially if you're creating a whole restaurant based off of it. And I've watched enough episodes of Top Chef Restaurant Wars to know that it's all about the concept.
True. I mean, maybe the execution is. We'll hope it's great. Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, we won't get ahead of ourselves. Rex, what did you like about this book?
Okay, let's see. So I did like the enemies to lovers. I didn't know that was like a subgenre. I guess that's what
It's
you
a
would call.
trope. We call it a trope in romance. Yeah. So we've got like enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, forbidden lovers, brother's best friend. I mean, there's so many.
So I like the trope. I'm very big on like Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. That like
Yes.
hate you, but then I fall in love with you. You know,
Mm.
I'm a big fan. I've never personally done it. I don't think I'd want to. Too much drama, but that was fun to read. That was one thing that I really liked. And I did really like that the female lead was Filipina. So I didn't know that going into it.
Hmm.
Um, but I grew up in Eagle Rock, which is like a neighborhood in Los Angeles, and there's a large population of Filipino people here. So
Yes.
it was fun to hear about their cuisine, and we had talked about me listening to it on Audible, and the actress who was cast to read the book and narrate the book, she did a really good job
Oh, good.
of the accent. So that was very fun.
Okay, good. Okay, and then I have to ask, did you like the actor performer who played Callum?
So it was the same voice actor, so she had to put on
Oh,
different
got
voices.
it. Okay, yeah,
Uh,
it's interesting because like some books will have a different narrator for like the male and female roles, but then other books it'll be one actor performer for the whole thing.
yes. So she did put on different voices, and I think she was very successful doing all of the female characters. It's hard to play a male voice as a female if you don't have a very deep voice. So I think that was, she did as good a job as she possibly can to be male or represent a male voice in the book. But it was fun to hear her as the mother, because I had friends' mothers who sounded like that. So kudos to, I'm assuming Sarah had a pick as to what it sounded like, so she chose a really great actor.
Yeah, and if it wasn't her, because I do always wonder about that, like how much say authors get in sort of like the cover design or the performers for the audiobook. Like if it wasn't her, it was definitely her publishing team. So whoever is responsible, kudos to them.
Kudos to you. Yeah, so that was fun. And this might sound like a totally left field, but I love that I love that she's Filipina, and I love that the leading man is British. I'm not over like cisgender white love stories.
I mean, I am. I'm a cisgender white woman, and I'm over it.
Yes, I'm a cisgender Latina woman, so like it's just fun to hear about her relationship with her mother, because clearly family values is like really important to her. For her to drop everything to go support her mother when her father died, like I understand that character. So that was really fun to see somebody who isn't necessarily like me, but at least I could read or listen to it with that lens on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. And this is something that, you know, obviously in the last few years we've been pushing for a lot more diversity in romance. We've been pushing for a lot more own voices in romance. And I wish I could say I knew for a fact that Sarah Smith was Filipina. And if she is, then I know that she mentions that she does like perfecting her lumpia recipe in her bio. So
I assumed, but that's a bad thing, right?
I'm going to take a wild guess and say that, maybe a not so wild guess, that Sarah Smith, that this is more of an own voices story. And now that I think about it too, her previous book, Faker, also featured a heroine who is a woman of color. And so I do think that she makes a point of writing diverse women in her books because they're representative of herself, which like you said, as a reader, it just hits on so many levels. Even if you're not Filipina, you can read this book and see her and see somebody that's not your typical cisgender white woman and find a connection with that.
Yeah, so I really did appreciate that about her story and her character's background. That was very fun. And then Lemon, the different abled kitten, the missing, so cute. I'm all about the cuddle.
Yeah, I liked it. So, you know, for reference for people, at some point there is a cat just found wandering on the beach, which I found amusing in itself. And our heroine, you know, and basically the hero as well, they kind of take in this cat and like co-parent it, trading off, you know, I mean, they're acting like a divorced couple, that it's like they get shared custody of this cat that Nikki decides to name Lemon, of all things. But I did really enjoy that, you know, at the end, Lemon has kittens and they name the kittens, but the one thing that drove me nuts, this is such a petty note. I have these occasionally on this podcast, are my petty notes. And this is, again, it just means that it's no fault of the author, but it's just something that keeps me up at night. And the fact is that when Nikki decides to name the kittens, she names all of them food-related things, except for one she calls Lulu. And I think the other ones are Sushi and Chowder, because the other cat's white. It's a white cat, so she names it Chowder. And I'm just like, where did Lulu come from? You have Lemon, you have Sushi, you have Chowder. Who the fuck is Lulu, and why does she belong in this group?
Oh my god, I love that. I hope that's like in the I hope you wrote that in your book and you give it to someone and they get to read all of it. I would love it.
Yeah, so these are the things that I wonder about. I mean, I know that they're not important. It's like when I talked about what you drink with your cinnamon rolls. I mean, like, these are just the things that stand out to me. I don't know why. It's my own personal neuroses, but anyway.
The answer is always milk or coffee. Did I get it right?
Thank you. Oh my God, you got it right in one try. Thank you, Rex.
Come on. This is an amateur hour. It's milk with your cinnamon roll. Duh.
Oh, bless you. This is why we're friends.
What are the alternative answers? Like a diet Coke or
I will tell you, this was a conversation that went on for a while, but it was originally brought on by the fact that in one of our former reviews, With Just One Kiss by Frances Ray, Lauren from Literary Dates, it's a fantastic blog, I highly recommend you check out. We had this discussion where in the book, the author mentioned that they were sitting down to a fresh cinnamon roll with a cold cup of orange juice, and I
fresh
lost
out
it.
Of the oven?
Yes,
if it was
hot
7-Eleven Bear Paw with some orange juice, maybe I'll forgive you, but that's horrible.
hot cinnamon roll, cold, fresh squeezed orange juice.
Oh, my stomach just hurt. That's terrible.
Bless you so much, Rex. Like, this is making you're making me feel so vindicated. So I thank you for that.
Yes.
Now, I will tell everybody while they're reading this book, I think it's very hard to do if you're hungry.
Yes.
And you know what? Even if you're not, when you start this book, you will be by the time you finish this book, because I was all about the food porn in this book. I kept picturing everything they were making. I would want lumpia at one point, and then it would be fish and chips, and then it would be fried rice, and then they're making like crusted mahi. Oh God, it all sounded amazing. And then the other, besides the food porn, you also have the location porn, because we are on the beaches of Maui, and I could just taste the salt in the air.
Have you ever been to Maui?
You know, I have, but I was 7. So, I mean, it's been a long time.
I've only been to the Big Island twice. Once, like, fresh out of high school, and once maybe, like, 5 or 6 years ago. Beautiful. So it wasn't the same island, but I could definitely see my own experience into that while I was listening to it.
Oh, God. I knew a couple people who actually went to college in Hawaii, and one of them loved it and the other one did not, because of the whole factor that, like, you're kind of isolated on this island and you really do have to get on an airplane to, like, go anywhere. But I don't know, the whole idea of, like, living in actual paradise just sounds pretty great.
Yes, I would agree. Sign me up.
Especially as I'm heading into a Minnesota winter, I'm like, you know what? Minnesota winter or Hawaii?
What do you mean heading it? Didn't you guys have like crazy storms in October? Wasn't that?
Oh, yeah. We had winter in October, and then we went back to late summer, fall for like the first part of November, and then it's going to be winter again next week.
It finally rained. It finally rained and the weather cooled down. So I will be able to bake again in Los Angeles.
Good luck. Go. Let's talk about our hero Callum, because good.
Yes. One of my favorite parts was, well, I guess I could read it if you want me to, or you want me to set it
Ooh,
out.
I mean, up to you.
So there's a scene where I think, so Nikki and Callum, the two opposing food truck chefs, or I guess he's a sous chef because it's his brother's food truck. But anyway, so they've already had their exchange, and she's decompressing at this beach. She's laying on the sand, and I will read what's going on. So I guess there's a man.
I know where we're going. Here we go.
Mysterious man at a distance, right? So I'll start reading. Even standing 20 feet away from me, his hotness is as clear as the blue sky above. His tall form showcased loads of lean muscle everywhere. So she's like oogling him from a distance. And one of my favorite parts is, let's see, halfway up the beach, he pauses to take a deep breath, bracing his hands on his thighs, and I'm treated to a crystal clear view of the good. Air lodges in my throat before I let out. Sorry, my Kindle's frozen. Building anticipation for everybody.
What did she let out? What is it? What did she let out?
Oh, Kindle F me over on my computer. So she essentially just sees his package, and he catches her staring at him later, and I died. Even listening to it, I was like, dear God, if this was real life, I would be mortified. But then also, like, looking back on it as I reflect, it was like, is a flaccid penis something you could really, like, judge? Because she says it was, like, perfect. Something like that. I guess I had the excerpt, but I was like, but it's flaccid. He was in cold beach water. I don't understand.
You know, that just means if you know and you see it and you know that it is a beautiful, perfect penis when it's flaccid, God, that dick is going to be huge when it's hard. Like, I mean, let's be honest, like a flaccid penis that you're like, wow, that's gorgeous. Like, that's going to be that's going to be too big. Like, when it gets hard.
I was like, it was big, but it was flaccid. Jeez.
Yeah. That's something you should know about romance novels. Everyone's got a big cock.
Yep. Everybody has a 6-pack and a huge monster penis.
And you know what? They use that exact phrasing in these books is monster penis.
Monster penis. Oh, yeah. God.
I did love the fact that there was like a nude or like clothing optional beach, which I know those are actual beaches. I didn't realize they had them in Hawaii. So, and maybe they don't. Maybe Sarah Smith made it up. But I always appreciate when an author kind of bookends something or they plant something and then it pays off later. And so I did appreciate the fact that we see him nude on the beach. And at the very end, we see the two of them like go skinny dipping together on the same beach. I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, the full circle. I did really appreciate that. I just am like, I've never been to the beach. Anytime I see somebody, actually, funny story I cannot share on here. I saw someone's penis randomly, but I was going to say most of the time, if I've ever seen one, it's like, it's intentional. It's not out of nowhere. On a beach. I have so many questions about this penis that you accidentally saw, but if you can't share it, you can't share it. It was good. I went to Coachella with a group of people, and a lot of them I didn't necessarily know. And I woke up to somebody coming into our tent, and it was just like a fully naked man. And it was somebody who was in the group, and he was sort of like out of his wits. And I was like, okay, this is weird. So then he like proceeded to just like sleep on the floor because his girlfriend kicked him out.
But Rex, Coachella. I mean, you said it in the setup. Like, does that, like, the minute you said Coachella, I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, I mean, I am not shocked now.
It was my first Coachella and my first rando peen that I had to pretend like I did not see. That was the first day we were there, and I have seen this person since and was like, well, we shared that bonding moment. So, yeah.
How funny. Oh my gosh, that's too great.
I was like, I woke up and was like, dear God, jeez.
A nice random peen bonding moment. I hope we all have one this week. No, I don't.
No.
Gosh. I mean, it's also hard not to be entranced with a human being when they are described as a hybrid of Michael Fassbender and Zac Efron. So she does. Yeah, that's when she first introduces Callum.
Oh, at the beginning. Yes.
That he's a hybrid of Michael Fassbender, who, by the way, has an enormous penis, and Zac Efron's. He did a movie that was all about like sex addiction, and he was naked up the yin yang in that movie.
Wow. Kudos to these actors who are so committed to their craft. Yeah, whatever. My body is a temple and I will share it with everyone.
Well, and I mean, when you've got a penis that big, like, it's okay to be confident.
True.
You got nothing to be ashamed about.
Small dick energy? Was that the... You don't want big dick energy.
You don't want...
Oh, small dick enthusiasm.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that was from our My Halloween Heartbreak episode. We strive for small dick enthusiasm as opposed to big dick energy.
Yeah, I love it. Goals.
Goals, you know? So fellas, there you go. Listen up. Yeah, I really liked Callum in general. I guess like my one complaint is I thought that he was so incredible, and I realized that Nikki is going through a lot of heartbreak like during this book. Like it very much is a story about dealing with grief. Like that it's not at the forefront, but the story is a lot about grief because we have, and I guess this is a trigger warning if you decide that you do want to read the book. It does begin where she has lost one of her parents. She's, you know, her dad has passed away. And so she and her mom moved to Hawaii to basically fulfill her parents' dream of running a food truck once they retired, which I think is the sweetest damn thing in the world. And to do that, she basically leaves Portland, Oregon behind without saying goodbye to friends, without really having any closure whatsoever, and suffers because of it. And I think it's a lot that people, when you read this book, I mean, I know not all of us are in Hawaii, not all of us are running food trucks, but I think there's a lot of things going on in this story emotionally that a lot of us are going through right now. So I found it very emotionally fulfilling that way. Like it was kind of like a nice release. But I will say it drove me nuts because Callum is just such a good guy. And I don't think he ever gives Nikki an indication of him being otherwise. And so every time that she would like push him away, I wanted to smack her in the face and just say, what are you doing? This guy has done so many amazing things for you. He is going out of his way to, you know, like, I mean, he really does try to make them work. And there's so many opportunities.
Yeah, this poor guy. I mean, I found myself listening, being frustrated with her. Like, dude,
yeah,
your guard. Kind of from the beginning, before even things got romantic, like him trying to help jump her car because she needed one, and she's like, no, I don't need your help. It's like, it's a fucking battery. Come on, woman.
It's a car jump. He's not proposing.
Yes, exactly. And so that was frustrating to me, but I do think looking at it through the, like, she's grieving and she doesn't even know what's going on. Like,
yeah,
she, I guess to some degree, doesn't have a sense of her own grief.
Yeah.
So it is important to think that, because I was very frustrated. Like, come on, girl.
No, I'm totally with you. I had to keep reminding myself about the grief that she's going through, and it's very understandable. This whole idea of, like, you know, someone you love who's seemingly perfectly healthy is here one day and gone the next day, and you then have this idea of like, I can't get close to anybody ever again because what if they leave me? I can't deal with it. And thankfully that's not been something that I've had to deal with a lot in my own life, at least at this point. And but it did frustrate me, just like sort of her reasoning for a lot, like all the reasons she tries to stay away from him, and you know, and then on his end, I don't know. He never really did anything wrong in my mind. Like, it seems like
okay, well, when they were already sort of romantically involved after the food truck debacle and whatnot, they shrivel into teenagers.
Yes.
Where she's like, I'm going to profess my love to you on Instagram, and I don't know why he didn't see it. And he's also like not messaging her. I'm like, come on, guys, this was so spicy at the beginning. You guys have terrible communication skills.
And she knows perfectly well, too, that he doesn't even use social media. So
use it. Come on. We all know that.
Yeah, you're right. I guess you're right when it comes to that, too. Like, he's very invested in their relationship when they're together. But when they kind of go their separate ways, he falls into that, category of like, well, if she's not going to reach out to me, I'm not going to reach out to her.
Yes, I do. Character-wise, I was like, you tried so hard at the beginning, and then you were just like, well, I'm not going to try anymore. See you later.
Ugh, so frustrating. I really liked his brother a lot, too. No. Liam. Finn. They're all British. They all sound like British people.
Yeah. I did make a point to like write down characters' names because I didn't want to forget. Like if you're listening to it, it's not like seeing it on pages, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I did like the brother relationship. Like what a solid guy to be like, I need to build up my brother because I love him so much.
Yeah, I really liked that too. That and what's funny is I've been diving into Hallmark Christmas movies a little bit early this year, specifically because of the way the world is. And
it's December. Let's be real.
I know. I watched a recent one that had come out, which by the way had a very amusing name. I think it was called Never Kiss a Man in a Christmas Sweater.
Oh God.
Yeah, I know. It's cute. And so, but it actually, I was reading this book at the same time that I was watching this movie, and I thought it was really funny that in both of them, you had a guy who had like a very successful corporate job, and not even one that he was like unhappy in, like one that, he did really well and he was good at what he did. He liked what he did. But when his family needs him, he basically drops everything to like go to the family and like, I'm here to help you. Like I would give all that up just to make sure that like you're okay and that we're okay and everything. And that was a similar thing that I saw in that movie too. And I thought that was really refreshing. It wasn't the whole idea of like he came out to, I mean, it starts off with he comes to Maui just to kind of like help his brother get things together. But I mean, very early into the story, we kind of know that he doesn't really have a vested interest in going back to his job and what he was doing. Like he's planning to stay there. He doesn't necessarily tell Nikki that, and she doesn't know that right away, but he does tell her, fairly, it's not that late into the book. So I thought it was nice that he was kind of planning to stick around whether or not they were together.
Yeah, there was like no sense of urgency. I totally agree with you. And he was just like, well, I'm kind of here now,
Yeah.
I do think he did say he was gonna go back for like
he did like early on. He had said like, I'm here to like help him, and then after the contest I'm gonna go back, because I mean I think that was one of the reasons she was so insistent on them having like a friends with benefits temporary situation, is because there was an expiration date. But then when he tells her, look, there isn't an expiration date anymore. And not only that, but I want us to take this a step further. That's when it became like scary for her.
Can I say my one issue with the storyline?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not a huge deal, but there was times where I was like, are there only 8 people that live in Maui? Because he's the vet volunteer. He's the cook, the naked guy on the beach, like guy at the farmer's market. So some bits of it were like, this guy is either stalking her or there are no people that live on this island.
Oh, and then there's that Instagram star that like is always everywhere at the same time. Penelope, who, it's so funny. That was actually refreshing to read, sort of like a female friendship form, because the minute you introduce Instagram star, blogger, gorgeous woman, I'm like, this is going to be bad. She's going to be terrible. She's going to be evil.
Totally.
So it was kind of refreshing.
Trope, right? Where you're just like, oh, there has to be a bitch if there are 2 women in a scene. And she delivered against those odds. I love that.
Yeah, I liked that. And we had a new friendship by the end of the story. And, at the same time, Nikki rekindled a friendship from back home. And so, yeah, it was nice to see kind of, sort of like the whole idea of like, you can take some of your past with you, but that doesn't stop you from like meeting people and forming relationships with them for the future. Like, I have some of my best friends are girls that I went to elementary school with, and we keep in touch to this very day. And then some of my friends are people that I met a month ago. So, I mean, it really just goes to show you that, I in general, I want to see more female friendships in books, but
Totally.
There's so many possibilities.
Yeah. And then going back to like, there are 8 people on this right next to Callum on the plane to London. Like,
oh yeah.
I thought that was orchestrated, and when they didn't make that happen, or when that didn't happen in the story, I was like, for real though? Maybe romance novels are just like that. I don't know.
No, you're right. That was honestly, I didn't really invest too much into it, but I do think that was like a major plot hole. I mean, not really major, because it's not.
Yeah,
it's not a huge part of the book.
Yeah, it's not a huge issue, but I was like, he's a vet volunteer, and they end up sitting next to each other.
And the fact that her mom booked her the flight, I was like, oh, this is so clear. Like, mom is in on it. She booked the flight because she knew Callum was flying back to London. She saw an opportunity to set her daughter up. Boom. Like, I would have loved that.
Yes. The Mother Yenta, I love it. I thought that was going to be something in the book. It wasn't, but that's totally fine. That's the only thing that I was like, huh, interesting.
Yeah. I guess that was like the one coincidence that Sarah Smith was like allowed to get away with in this story.
Yes.
You get one. That's it.
So it's fine. Yeah, just fun.
Yeah.
It's cool. You accept it. It's fine. Maybe she can write a Mother Yenta story next time.
Yes, I want more meddling parents.
Yes.
Yeah, I am curious because, her other book, actually, I say her other book, I think she has a couple out now, but we actually did review her debut novel, Faker, and it never made it to our podcast. It never made it to air, sadly, thanks to some, technical difficulties. But I will say that, like, if you did read Faker, I will say I liked Simmer Down, I think, a little bit better. And I think there's definitely similarities between the two. In Faker, it's also an enemies to lovers romance. They are work colleagues who basically are forced to like share a cubicle and have to work together. And he's always harbored an interest in her, but never admitted it. So she thinks that he hates her. And in this one, it's got a similar vibe. And so it's clear what Sarah Smith likes and what Sarah Smith writes. And I am here for it all day.
That's good. I'll have to check that one out too.
Yeah. There's not as much food though, just so you know.
Maybe I need that. I've definitely gained some COVID-19 pounds for sure.
That's okay. We all have. Definitely at least COVID-19.
Yeah.
Okay, Rex, did you have a favorite sexcerpt or saucy moment that you wanted to share?
So there's one line that just got me, and it was
ooh,
cringe-worthy.
Oh, it got you in that way. I was going to say, how did it get you? Did it get you good or get you like, eat?
It got me like, eat. Let's see. Okay, so it's a little paragraph. This is, I think, when they first end up sleeping together when she goes to London, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So this is the excerpt. I press my eyes shut just as they start to roll back. That spot, the elusive spot that every man had such a hard time locating, is front and center. I silently dub him the G-spot whisperer.
Hell yeah.
I don't know what
like that part.
No, I did. I appreciate the way that he just gifted Nikki lots and lots of orgasms, I'm assuming. But dubbing him the G-spot whisperer, I couldn't stomach it. I think I like paused it and started giggling and then continued on with the book. But
yeah,
that was the only thing I was like, oh, I don't like that.
I was a fan. But that's my kind of humor. Like that's more of like, instead of a giggle, I probably did a little like, yes, like snap moment.
Yes. I think, oh gosh, did you ever read Atonement? I'm assuming.
No, I saw the movie.
Okay, so you know the letter, right? The delivered letter that what's her face gets. I don't even know the main character.
Keira Knightley.
Yes, her, but I don't think that's the name in the book.
That's the only name you need to know.
So I was reading this book while I was babysitting for a family, and I had just started it. It was kind of dragging on. It was a little too British for me. And the mother, before she leaves, she's like, "Oh, how far are you in?" And I was like, I've tried to read this book a few times, but for some reason it doesn't stick. She's like, "Well, text me when you get to the part." And I was like, "What are you talking? Like, what part?" Like, "I don't know." And when I read it, I shut the book and I like put it down, and I was like, I can't believe that word is in this book. Where I guess the line is some sort of like, "Oh God, I can't even say it. Like, I want to kiss your cunt," or something.
Yeah, I was
like
gonna
that.
say, I mean, he uses the word cunt. Like, that's basically what you're talking about, right?
I mean, not the like derogative cunt, like
no.
I want to kiss her vagina, essentially, is what he's saying. And I remember being like, oh my God, this mother knows that I read this book. And I was probably in my early 20s, maybe like 19. But this was kind of one of those, like, I need to pause and just process this. It just happened. So maybe that's where it was at. But I was just like, oh God.
I wish we had more books that use the word cunt, because then we would normalize the word cunt, and it wouldn't be the mean, nasty word it is. It would just be, this is vagina, this is pussy, this is cunt.
But he's British. I'm surprised we don't ever see it in this book.
Oh, good point. Actually, now that I think about it, though, he doesn't really talk about her vagina that much in general. Like, I don't even think he refers to it at all. Like, I don't think he says like, "Oh, damn, that sweet pussy," like at any moment.
Right. His actions speak for him. He doesn't.
Yes, exactly.
Talk about it. He just is about it.
Yeah, no cunt whispering. We're whispering to that G spot. We got to be specific. Well, let me read you. This one's a little bit later, and I'm trying to remember. I think this is kind of like the sex scene where things change. Like, it's where you can tell that Nikki's kind of like struggling with her emotions, and she just, I think she and Callum are like watching TV, they're drinking, which is like their thing that they do together, is they watch The Office while drinking. And
yes.
Yeah, and she just looks over at him and she just says to herself, like, this is perfection. Like, this is literally what I've been looking for, and this is it. And so, you know, to distract herself from that, she climbs on top of him, and, you know, things ensue. So let me get to, oh, here we go. We'll start with, soon we've shed all fabric. So, you know, things are getting hot. Soon we've shed all fabric. Inside, I'm burning, aching, begging for release. So I reach between his legs to guide him inside of me. Wait, he blurts. Oh, wait. Wait. I'm trying to, how do you say wait, British? Wait, he blurts.
Southern, not even Georgia now.
Then reaches to the other end of the couch where his rumpled trousers lie. Okay, good for him. He remembered a condom. He glances at the empty spot on the couch where Lemon was sitting. We must have scared her off. We both share a chuckle as he fishes his wallet out of his pocket, and then he pulls out a condom. I swipe it from him, rip the wrapper open with my teeth, then lean back as I slide it on. Callum fists the arm of the couch and grits his teeth as I make my move. Okay, I'm going to be British again. Get ready.
Yes.
Fucking hell, Nikki. That's perfection. I let out in a breathy voice. I groan at how he stretches me out in the best possible way. It's because he's got that big monster cock.
No, she doesn't actually tell us anything about it other than it's kind of big when it's flaccid. What a miss.
Yeah, and he stretches her out when it's not flaccid.
That sounds painful, but maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah. There you go. That's we've learned so much about him through Nikki's eyes. Okay, well, I think it's about time that we start to wrap things up, and the best way to do that is by giving this book a few grades. So we are going to grade for heart, humor, and heat on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that it could possibly be. So, Rex, I will turn it over to you. What do you think for heart?
Ooh, I would say 8. 8, maybe 9. I mentioned earlier the family values thing was really important to me. So to see them stepping in and stepping up for their families is like really great.
That's a good point. I put it at an 8 originally, but I think if I do kind of factor more of the family dynamics and family love present, I mean, even in the very end, we have the whole idea of Callum and Finn's family finally accepting the fact that they love to make food for a living and like rolling with it. Like I think it is closer to a 9 now that I think about it.
Yes, definitely.
How about humor?
Humor, I would say like 7, almost 8. There's some parts, and I didn't highlight them or anything, where this like self-deprecating humor is something that I do relate to, but also I'm like, no, this isn't healthy. I want a strong female lead humor. You know what I mean? So it's like part of me is an internal battle. But if I wasn't looking at it from that perspective, I would say 8.
Okay, I think that's solid. Yeah, I gave it a 7 because there were definitely moments that I did find fun. I thought they have great banter between the two of them. And if you're into like the banter and the enemies to lovers part of the comedy, you would really like Sarah's other book, Faker, because it is full of that as well. But you know, it's not a laugh out loud book through and through. And like we said, there's a lot of heavier stuff going on below the surface level. So, you know, there is, especially as we get deeper into the book, I don't want to say it becomes dark or angsty, but it definitely, you know, you're diving beneath the surface. You're going from like the light and fluffy friends with benefits food truck owners to here's what's actually going on in their lives. And it does get a little more serious. So yeah, there you go. How about the heat?
I would say a 7.
Okay. There wasn't enough, you know, explicit language for you. No cunts.
Not enough puns. But you know what? Having had you read the stretching out part, maybe I'll bump it up to 7. Who knows? I mean, 8. Who knows?
Wow, an extra point just for stretching her out with his monster penis.
Yeah, I think if I reread the sexy parts, maybe the grade would go up. But it was like, there was so much other stuff happening that frustrated me that turned the heat down. You know?
Yeah,
like just
that's
color,
fair.
dude. Just color, that's all.
And you know what? As far as like the sex scenes go, like they're I would say they're more warm than they are hot. Like it's not the most explicit sex scene I've ever read, nor is it the hottest sex scenes that I've read for this podcast. But you know, you heard a brief excerpt. Like you get a little bit of language. It's not super explicit as to what body parts are doing what and to whom, but other than stretching her out.
I think it's because they're very much into each other. And
yeah.
It sounds terrible that it's like that waters the heat down, but it's not like they're like just carnally into one another, you know?
Yeah. He's
so
not telling her where he's going to put it, but he just puts it there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. See, he's about it. He's all about it. He doesn't need to talk about it.
Exactly. It's like you reading erotica. You're like, look, I do these things, but I don't usually say them out loud.
Exactly. Be about it. Don't talk about it. It's great.
See, we've come full circle. Look at that. Well, Rex, now that you've read Simmer Down, which, you know, like I said, is probably a far cry from the previous romance that you've read before, if you even call what you've read romance, Can you say that you will, perhaps have more romance to read in your future?
Oh yeah, totally. I think depending on how long this all stretches out, currently I'm single, so it can fill a certain void.
I'm sorry, what's stretching out? I think you subconsciously, that was your Freudian slip for the episode.
You know what? You delivered. That setup was golden and not on purpose whatsoever. I swear to God.
Yeah, but anyway, I so rudely interrupted you, and you were talking about that. You're single and you want to read romance to fill a void. Oh, girl, I feel you. I am the eternal single woman, and so there's a reason I love romance so much. It fulfills my heart.
Oh, you know what? Segue, fun short story. I used to be like a leader for like a high school group, and one of the girls was like, "Oh, you have to read this book." I forget what it was. And I was like, "Oh, cool." She's like, "I bought it on my Kindle, so I'll give you my password." And right before she gave it to me, she hesitated. And I was like, "What's going on? Are you okay?" She's like, "Okay, don't judge me. But I have a lot of books on there that might make you uncomfortable." And I was like, "What? What are you talking?" I had no idea what she was talking about. She shared her password with me, and it was just like a ton of romance novels. And she was like 14 or 15. And I was like, "Okay,
yes, queen.
You do you. I totally get it." So, yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people I've spoken to, like, within the romance world, where they did start reading romance, like, when they were 12, 13, 14. But I mean, at the same time, it kind of makes sense. Those are your formative years. And
yeah.
I wish I had been reading romance at that time, because I feel like it would have, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we hide so much when it comes to sex, and
absolutely. American notion. We're not European whatsoever. Ugh.
I know, and for that reason, I mean, we see that, the way that Europeans have relationships is very different from the way that Americans have relationships. And I feel like if we did read more romance at a young age, or let our I don't want to say children, but like let our teenagers, adolescents read it as well, then they could form their own opinions about sex and relationships and love, instead of us forcing them. You know what? I'm going to stop, because I'm not even a parent, so I shouldn't be telling people how to parent their children.
You totally, there's validity to it. I watched this documentary about the MPAA, the way that like we rate films.
Yes.
Did you watch that?
Is it the one where, what is it? This film is not yet rated?
Yes. And so you know what I'm talking about when they say like we American films normalize violence when it's not normal, when sex is very normal, but we don't put that in our movies. And it's like, oh gosh, I didn't even dawn on me, because I was so very American when I watched it. But I completely agree with it, like a decade after I'd seen it,
Yeah, the two things that I always remember from that documentary, and if people listening haven't watched it, I totally recommend checking it out. Although it is at this point, it's been out. I mean, it's been beyond a decade. Like, it's so I'm sure some of the stuff in there is outdated, but the two things I always remember are when Kevin Smith talks about Jersey Girl, which it's not a good movie, right? But with Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler, and there's a scene where Liv Tyler talks about masturbating, and that they had originally given this movie an R rating specifically because she just talked about masturbating. And this is one of the movies it's like one of my earliest memories of somebody actually talking about masturbation, like in a movie. And then the other one, I don't know why people are so down on masturbation in movies. The other one was in But I'm a Cheerleader, which is such a good, underrated indie movie, lesbian love story, so good. And there's a scene where one of the characters is masturbating over her clothes, mind you, like nothing is being shown. And they originally got an NC-17 rating because of that scene. And I don't know if it was because of masturbation. I don't know if it was because it was a woman masturbating to the thought of another woman. But it just goes to show you like how things have changed, but not that much.
Yeah. Everybody's too conservative. we'll say moderate, but we've shifted into maybe being more moderate than we were before. Yeah, I'm just like, it's so normal, and it's just it's a philosophy that we've all sort of just been taught without realizing it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we need more romance out there in the world. We need to all be reading it. And that's why
Yes.
I have this podcast and I bring fabulous people like yourself onto it specifically to force these books upon you.
Oh yes, I will share this podcast when it comes out because I love I mean I've only listened to the last podcast that you did, but I'm a fan. I'm excited to hear all.
You're the best. You have such good taste and you drink milk with your cinnamon rolls. So I mean,
There
friends
no
for
other
life.
Yes.
Well, Rex, thank you so much for doing this. And where can the people find and follow you if you want them to do that?
Oh yeah, follow me. So I'm on Instagram at Rex Barraza. I think it's Rex Barraza. I was gonna say Rex.Barraza, but that's my email address. So, Rex Barraza. I also have like a baking account. I think it's like XO Need Love. It's a very newfound COVID developed baking hobby that I have, but I freaking love it. Still owe you some Madelines because it's not summer. I will bake them and send them to you. But yeah, you can find me on either one of those.
Perfect. Yeah. And after reading this book, following Rex and seeing what she's baking will be the antidote to the hunger pains that you'll be feeling.
Yeah. The withdrawal. Just check out my Instagram. It'd be great.
Oh, so good. I'm hungry already.
I know. I'm going to go get some dinner now.
Perfect. I hope it's street tacos.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening. Boobies and Newbies is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow Boobies and Newbies on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Boobies Podcast.